We are now entering tonight the month of Av, and the reality of the concept of that these are the 3 weeks of mourning are most impactful on us starting tonight. From this point in time, a shower for relaxation, for enjoyment is frowned upon. We are to enjoy ourselves with a good steak or to enjoy a meat meal is frowned upon. We have to maintain a level of mourning, and it's over the 3 weeks, but it becomes much more intense tonight. And for most of us, it's the only time it's really noticeable. Starting from we're allowed to swim all the way up to today for everybody. We're allowed to buy new clothes. We don't have to worry about wearing new clothes or recently washed clothes. The intensity or the impression of mourning that is put upon us starts this evening. And I'd like to spend a little time in order to ensure that we understand how to be inspired by this idea of mourning. There are many fasts that happened that we Jews fast on year. Some are to commemorate going to war, when the Jews fasted to make sure they had God's help. That's the story of Tiny Esther. There's some that are because of the fact there was a terrible calamity in the Jewish people. That's Tzom Gedalia, Asar B'Teves. There's some like Yom Kippur, we fast for the idea of tshuva. And there's Inuyim. It's very interesting and fascinating that with each one of the fast, the idea of how we do tshuva, how we fast is different. They're not one size fits all. And it's very interesting, and it's important to understand that with the fast of Shivasar B'Tammuz and the fast of Tisha B'Av, the concept of Avelus is introduced. The fact that we're in mourning. It's not there with Yom Kippur, it's not there with Tiny Esther. This idea of mourning's not there. What is the message and why is this so central that these weeks are there for mourning? I'd like to offer my understanding, and let's go back a little earlier. Where does mourning fit in from a Jewish perspective? I think it goes back to the pasuk in the beginning of Parshas Vayera, where Hashem says, why did I choose Avraham? Because he says, I know that Avraham will ensure that his children will follow in his footsteps after his life. That's a very nice concept. Where do we see that there was a continuation, that there was a desire to follow into it after his life? I think the Torah is telling us the formula to how to ensure that your children will follow in your footsteps is if you properly mourn the person. You properly bury the person, you properly mourn him, and you spend your time analyzing and trying to ensure that you, the child, move forward with the message of your father. If one opens the Chumash and looks and sees that the Torah tells the story about how Avram died and how Yitzchak and Yishmael came to mourn him, it tells about how Yitzchak died and how they mourned him and cried for him. It's interesting. They cried for Avram, cried for Yitzchak, and that they cried for Yaakov, and how the mourning done, the crying and the mourning was done for Yaakov, not only by the Jews, by all the Egyptians, and it was a worldwide event. And it says that they mourned, that there was a name of a city was changed because there was so much mourning in that city. Then we come to in Sefer Bamidbar, where we talk about the mourning for Aaron. Sefer Vayikra, we talk about the mourning for the crying for the two sons of Aaron, And then we have the Sefer Dvarim, where we have how much mourning there was done for Moshe Rabbeinu. This idea that mourning is central to what it means to be a Jew is a message that comes through in the Torah. The mourning is that I, as a son, who had been influenced by my father, and my father's leaving my side now. And how am I going to go forward? I can only go forward if I stop after his death and think about what he would have wanted from me, what he was teaching me all my life, and make sure to make that part of my existence. Mourning is taking the concepts, the precepts, which I've learned from my father, talking about it with other people, and ensuring that it's part of my existence. Now, it's very interesting that when the Jews made the sin, when the Jews sinned with the story of the Meraglim, the spies, and they slapped Hashem. Hashem said, listen, I'm going to take you, I'm going to give you a Torah, and then I'm going to take you to Israel, and I'm going to give you the opportunity of a lifetime. And the Jews came back and said, no, we don't want it. How are we supposed to react when we choose to ignore a gift from our father? How should a son whose father passed away and son never listened to his father, at his death, he's going to value what his father said as much as possible. He's never going to be able to get it as clear from his father, but if he mourns his father properly, he has the option, the opportunity as much as possible. The Jewish people, they were in the desert, and fascinatingly, took and ignored an opportunity given to them by the Creator and turned it down. And Hashem, the Torah says in Parsha Shlach, Vayis'abolu, the Jews, when they sinned, they knew they did such a great sin that they understood the only way to correct it is Vayis'abolu. They had to mourn. It's not enough to do regular tshuva. They had to not only do tshuva what they did wrong, but they had to mourn the fact that they lost the opportunity of having a Beis Hamikdash where we would be constantly be able to be advised by Hashem what is best for us. We could constantly bring a korban and be able to be close to Hashem, not forget about Him. Now, I'd like to spend one last moment here and talk about two perspectives of what mourning is. The world mourned the Holocaust. The world, there's no question, the establishment of the State of Israel, there's no question there's a lot of mourning for the Holocaust. But do you know how the world mourned it? It said the following: there was an animal, a wild man, a crazy man, named Hitler. And he in his craziness did this terrible thing that murdered 6 million Jews. The rest of the world was not at all responsible. It was only a crazy man that did it. Now, that's one side. The other side is how we mourn the fact that the Jews made the mistake in the desert. We say that, you know what? We had 10 great rabbis and all the Jewish people, and we made a terrible mistake. And we chose to ignore what Hashem wants. Now, I ask you, which people are going to make sure that the mistake's not going to happen again? The ones who have said they weren't responsible even though they were responsible? Or the ones who understand that their mistake was so much part of them, and therefore they have to mourn because they have to ensure they're going to be different? All the Holocaust museums are not going to make the nations of the world understand any better how it happened and how they were complicit in the death of the 6 million people, because they're not willing to take responsibility. The Gemara tells us every generation the temple wasn't rebuilt. It's because we destroyed it. We're part of that process. We've said that the temple's not important to us. Having Hashem with us is not important with us. We had our rabbis, the 10 leaders of the tribes, who told us the same idea. We don't have to do what the rabbi says. We can always find somebody who will give us a different direction. The idea of these 3 weeks, idea of mourning, is to feel the loss that we aren't able to have the greatest clarity possible. Which that's what we really want. We want to be able to know Hashem like Moshe, face to face. We want as much as possible. But don't forget that Shmuel b'derek yifkach derek. Whoever our true rabbinic leadership is, we have to follow them, even if we don't agree, because otherwise we're always in danger of becoming like the door in the midbar. Thank you. And again, this is part 1. I'll have hopefully another video next week. Thank you very much.